work for are remote companies. And remote jobs just need a specialist. They don't need somebody, you don't see a remote job there. They are looking for somebody who is good in, let's say, expert in cloud, expert in front end, expert in back end. They don't do that. If it's front end, if it's back end, if it's cloud. So that's why I always advise that if you're a beginner, please don't try to just learn cybersecurity. You're learning cybersecurity one person, you're learning data science the same person, you're learning machine learning the same person, you're learning MLOps. You just end up not being deep on anything. At the end of the day, it's a job you want. If you're learning for fun, like hobby, fine, you can do that. But my best advice, if it's cybersecurity you want to go into, focus on that area. Master every stack around that area. Get deep in that area. Okay. I also do cybersecurity, but I didn't even want to mention that. If you want to do data science, focus on data science, learn the stack from ground up, right? Land your first role, your first job. And then once you've landed your first job, you can now try to spread your tentacles and learn other things that are related. Okay, so just take that advice from me. It will really be helpful. Okay, let's continue. So looking at the buzzwords, right? Cloud, I've mentioned some of these in cloud, AI, data science, DevOps. Some of you are like, what is this guy talking about? So we just want to get into some of these things quickly. So all of these things are floating. If you're on LinkedIn, it's even more horrible, right? You get on LinkedIn and you're like, oh my God, am I even learning anything? Because it's like people are doing stuff and you are nowhere. You feel like you are just drowning, right? It's not just you. We all get that feeling sometimes, even me, right? I get on LinkedIn and I see someone's post, I'm like, guys are doing crazy things, and what am I doing with my life? So it's not just you, it's a feeling we all get. Have you ever had that feeling before? Let me know in the chat. You see what people are doing on LinkedIn, you're like, oh my God. Where will I ever also get here? Yeah. So you see, it's not just you and it's not just me all the time. Okay, all right, good. So cloud, what is a cloud about? It's not just about storage, right? It is about renting servers. Okay, basically just renting servers and services that belong to a big tech company. So you rent whatever they have. If it's servers or hardware, we could just call them infrastructure, right? You rent their servers, network, and what have you to solve a problem for a business. And you do a pay as you go. You only pay for what you use. So when you want to use electricity at home, what do? Do you go and buy a transformer? Who does that? Nobody does that, right? You don't go and buy a transformer and the whole hydroelectric power plant. You don't do that. You just request for a meter, they connect you to the main lines or grid, and you start using electricity. You only pay at the end of the day for what you have consumed at the end of the month, right? So that's how the cloud works. They have big servers owned by Google, Amazon, Azure. Azure is for Microsoft. Then Alibaba Cloud, DigitalOcean. These are the big companies. They own these servers, massive infrastructures, right? And I want to run big data, huge data. My laptop cannot take it. What would I do? I can rent a very powerful server with powerful, what they call it, specifications, like the memory, the disks, get all that I want, right? GPU, everything. Then I can now run my machine learning algorithm on it. I can run my heavy workloads on that. At the end of the day, within, let's say, 2 hours, I've finished doing my work. I just pay for maybe $2, maximum maybe $10, $20. I'm done. And I just unplug myself from that server. I decommission it. And then I go my way. I didn't have to go and buy a $2 million or let's say a $10,000 machine to run a workload for just 2 hours. After that 2 hours, what do I do next? So that's what the cloud is about. Just get that idea. And it's not just about infrastructure. There are other services like AI services that you can also rent or use and pay and use that pay as you go model, right? Good. AI too, many people hear AI and the only thing they think about is ChatGPT. I know those people are not in this call. So AI is more than ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is just one of the things about AI. We'll talk about that. We'll just look at it briefly. And data science. Sometimes you tell people I'm a data scientist, and they're like, "Oh, this guy is working with Excel." That's the idea they have. So you thinking that you're a senior man, somebody is just thinking that you are just an Excel user. I get that a lot of time, right? But data science is more than just Excel. No, Excel is even just like the entry point into the space of data science, data analytics. Okay, and DevOps. Okay, that one sounds great, right? What is DevOps? Who even crafted that word? So dev is just made up of two words, developers and operations, right? So those developers are those who build the software, like front-end developers, back-end developers. And the operations are those who take care of the infrastructure I made mention of, right? Now, these two guys always had a conflict. The developers to create the software, it gets to a point in time, how that software moves into production for people to start using it becomes a problem. So to bridge that gap between developers and operations, then this new thing was coined. It's more of a culture rather than even should I call it a rule? It's more of a culture, a way of doing things like that. You automate lots of stuff. You remove a lot of manual work and you do a lot of automation to make sure that when the software is created or built, it gets to the end user with very little friction. Lots of automation taking over the whole process. Okay. So whenever you're interested in building automation into building software and getting to the end user, you employ the culture of DevOps, development operations. Good. Then we go to machine learning, deep learning, AI. Where do they connect? Look at that shortly. MLOps, machine learning operations. Say who invented this? You're just thinking so many times. LLMs, generative AI. This is like the trend. Anytime you go on LinkedIn, everywhere, you'll be seeing it all over the place. Then the last but not the least, but rather the biggest among them, agentic AI. Okay, I've already explained the cloud, right? You don't have to build or bring yourself a transformer. You just request for a small meter, you use it on a pay as you go. Artificial intelligence, right? So basically, before the advent of artificial intelligence, we have what we call rule-based systems. So with rule-based systems, you program or you write code. And the code is like you are trying to imagine all the possible scenarios, right? Like I see you and I'm thinking of what are all the, let's say at the end of this seminar, I will think, or I'm thinking to myself, what are the possible questions these people can ask me? And I try to write all the possible questions you guys will ever ask me at the end of this seminar, right? So as soon as you ask me the question, I just refer to the answer already baked or cooked, and I just give you the answer. That's what we call the rule-based system. So if someone is building a chatbot using a rule-based system, you can imagine how many lines of code you have to write. You are thinking about all the possible scenarios you can ever be asked, right? And you are coding it. So that if the person asks, how are you? Please tell the person I'm fine. If the person asks, where do you live? Tell the person this. So we call it hard coding. You have hard coded all the answers. Some people think that's how ChatGPT works. We have given ChatGPT all the possible answers. So as soon as you ask the question, it just goes to look for the possible answer and gives it to you. Basically not. Basically not. It uses a system to operate. So we moved away from rule-based systems, which was kind of hectic, right? And when you ask any question which is not part of the knowledge base of the system that you have built, it means that it may just return the default answer is maybe a default answer. I don't have any idea of what you're talking about. So to replace the rule-based system, that's where we started working towards artificial intelligence, whereby we don't want to manually, okay, create rules, but we want dynamically the computer should be able to what? Produce or generate answers or responses that are actually meaningful or sensible, right? So they are not explicitly programmed to give specific answers to every question, but they have actually learned and tried to understand human language and be able to respond meaningfully to whatever question or query that is asked. Okay, great. So artificial intelligence, you're talking of machines doing things that used to need human mind, right? So you can just imagine whatever we talk about AI, whenever I talk about AI, we're looking at just mimicking human, should I say, characters, human ability. Yeah, better word. We are mimicking human ability, the ability to learn, right, and correct ourselves of mistakes as we learn, the ability to perceive, right, reading X-ray, recognizing face, hearing speech, reasoning, thinking deeply about problems, solving problems, making decisions. When we want to give machines these abilities, right, then we are talking about artificial intelligence. So that if we don't have a human being doing it, a machine can replace the human being and do it in its or instead. Yeah. Awesome. So there are certain things that machines cannot do, and we don't attribute it to artificial intelligence yet. Let me use the word yet. Like AI becoming conscious of itself, someone will say becoming transient, getting feelings, emotions, and what have you. We don't add those things to the list, right? But hopefully, maybe in the future, we can talk about that if it ever comes into play. Okay, so all the things I said we will look at again: artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, large language models, AI agents. They all live in the same place. So the broad term that encapsulates all of them is artificial intelligence, right? Then as we go down, then we are trying to become more specific in the function, right? So artificial intelligence is the broad thing. Machine learning is when we are giving machines or these algorithms data to learn from, then to adjust their weights, then they understand them, they give us a model, we can use the model to make predictions. Deep learning, we are now going deeper, right? Trying to mimic how the human brain works, how the neurons in the brain work. We try to mimic that, then we are going lower towards deep learning. Large language models also a part and an aspect of deep learning. This time, we train them, millions and billions of parameters are being trained at the same time. So much data, right, fed to these algorithms to train their weights. Then we get a very powerful AI brain, which can actually like give us responses that sound very human. The first time we were receiving responses that sounded very human was when LLMs, large language models, were architected, right? And I think it was attributed by some good work of engineers at Google playing around with what we call the transformer. And you can read more on that, the transform or wild transformers. If you have something called attention, it's all you need, paper. You can find it online and then get into the nitty-gritties of that. Okay, so that was a major breakthrough, right? Where these models could now respond as if they were humans. So you ask the first time you used ChatGPT, how was the feeling like? A quick break, tell me. The first time you used ChatGPT, how was the feeling like? Can you remember the very first question you asked ChatGPT? Let's drop it in the chat.
I wouldn't remember, but I'll say I was just surprised.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so guys, draw some of the questions you asked ChatGPT for the first time. Let me see. Okay, great. Then the last one. So you can think of the last one, AI agents. As so, let's look at the large language models. It's now this powerful brain, just like the low level. It's just a brain which can like relate or communicate like a human being. That's the LLM. So the brain without a body, it cannot move anywhere, it cannot touch anything, it's just sitting on a table. That's how you can picture the large language models like, right? But when we begin to give them a body, hands, right, legs, what else? Maybe a mouth. Then we are trying to give it the ability to now communicate with its environment, to be able to do things we call like acts in its environment, right? So it's no longer isolated, but can now communicate with other things on the internet, get information from the internet by itself, and connect to other people's infrastructure and do wonderful things, right? It can reason and think through whatever it's doing to make more decisions. Then we're looking at AI agents. So they can make decisions, they can use tools, they can act. Just like giving the brain a body now. Okay, awesome. This is what somebody told me after I explained machine learning to the person in one of my classes. He just told me, then the ice water seller, that's machine learning already. How is it possible? When it's a hot day, what happens? She knows that she has to sell, or she can get more market for whatever the bottles of water she's selling, the sachet or the bottles, right? So in another sense, the data that she's been exposed to during her sales of bottled water or sachet water has informed her about a certain pattern, right? So she's aware that whenever it's going to be a sunny day, lots of people are going to buy lots of water from her experience, right? Interaction with people over a period of time. Whenever the weather is cold, people don't buy much. Now, whenever you are able to build something like that, we call it a model, right? You're able to build that kind of pattern system, which you know really works. You can point out or you can point the finger to that system, that pattern system that you have recognized, and then call that pattern system a model. That from this model, I know that when the temperature is above 37 degrees Celsius, the weather is very hot, sales will go up. I will sell above, let's say, 500 cedis or 1,000 cedis. If the weather is below, the temperature is below, let's say, 20 degrees Celsius, I'm going to sell below 100 cedis, right? And that in itself is a model. So when you think of machine learning models, they're basically like training algorithms to just get that kind of pattern system that you can now predict what will happen when certain parameters what changes. Okay, so you get data, you learn from that data, you see a pattern, you build that pattern system, which becomes the model. Then you're able to now make inference, okay, or predict what will happen in the future. Great, awesome. I've already spoken about this paper, right? I'll leave the slide with you. You can delve more into it. Attention is all you need. Transformer architecture, ChatGPT being built all in one place. Okay. So machine learning engineers, that's what they do. They collect lots of data. Then they have several algorithms. Depending on the kind of data that they have, they train those algos to pick up patterns from the data. Then they have a training model which can be used to make predictions. Whether it's going to rain, whether it's not going to rain, you can detect that. Okay. So data science in itself, right now, is kind of interesting because you may be employed as a data scientist, but you end up finding yourself doing any of these jobs I've just displayed right now. So traditionally, data scientists were like senior data analysts. That's how I came into the profession, right? So data analysts were just people who collect data from a company's database, data warehouse. They build what we call dashboards, right? Then they're able to look at the dashboard at a glance and tell how the sales or how the company is performing, currently performing, right? Then because there are so many metrics on the dashboards, KPI, key performance indicators, and what have you. So they look at what is happening now. Where have we come so far? That's the data analyst. Then based on that, the company can still make decisions. Because if sales is now low as compared to last month, what has caused that dip in sales, right? Then you can try to explain or tell a story around that. Okay. So that's what data analysts basically do. They look at what has happened over a period of time, and they try to make informed decisions moving forward. Data scientists, on the other hand, they can also do that, right? We are trained to do that. But beyond that, we're able to now gather that data, which is telling that story, and use that data to train an AI brain, or what we call the AI model. Now, we're able to now make predictions into next month. What will happen next month according to our AI model? What will happen next 3 months, right? Some models can even predict as far as next 6 months or even next year. So data analysts are like, they look backwards, what has happened so far. They look at the data backwards. And data scientists mainly try to predict what will happen in the future. But as I said, you can be employed as a data scientist today in a company. And in the mind of the one who is recruiting you, who doesn't really understand what data science even means, right? He's thinking you can do all the things on the screen right now. He's thinking you can do data engineering, you can do data analysis. In fact, everything that has the word data inside, he expects you to be able to do it. Yeah. And that's one of the problems with these recruiters and what have you. Many of them know very little about the space that we are in, right? They just go online and just do a Google search about the job requirements. They themselves don't even write it themselves. They are not technical. Most of them are not even technical people, right? They just look at what is trending and they just pick it and gather. And that's why you may have a job post and you're wondering which human being has all of these skills, right? But somebody somehow, don't be discouraged, just apply. As I said, the one who has built that post, it doesn't even understand what it's posting, right? So you may not find any human being to match all those things that are in the post. So just be confident whenever you're applying for jobs. You can't be a super human being, or someone said, I can't be 5 departments. Sometimes that's what they expect, but apply for the job and you get it. You get it. Once you have at least the minimum skills, right? Level of skills, you get it. Okay. So data engineers, basically, what do? They make sure that the data is available, right? They look for the data. They can gather the data from APIs, application programming interfaces. They can gather it from what we call web scraping the internet, doing a search, crawling the internet, people's sites to pick up data for you, right? When they get all of that data, they put it in a big place called data warehouse. It's like removing your clothes from a dry line. You don't have time. It's about to rain. You have to remove it quickly. You don't package it nicely, right? You just put it in a pan or basket. And when later on you get indoor, you can now pick them one after the other and fold them. So that's what data engineers do. They get all the messy data from so many places, different places, dump it in the data lake, right? From the data lake, they can now have about 3 levels, maybe the bronze layer, the silver layer, and then the gold layer. So as it moves up these layers, they try to clean the data, process it, and make it more suitable for the upstream tasks, like what the data analyst. So if the data analyst needs data, the data engineer will make sure that he's put the data in what we call a data warehouse. The data analyst can easily connect to that data warehouse and then pull data from there. Data that is actually matching his or her needs, right? So the data engineer does all of the dirty work behind the scenes, getting the data from the source, moving it through different layers to make sure that it's suitable and available to the data analyst, data scientist, right? My boss always tell me the hottest job now, people don't even know about. People are always talking about data science. But those guys who are hardly kicked out of their workplace are data engineers. Because these guys are supporting the whole team. So the data analyst, data scientist, MLOps engineer, they are all hinged on what? The data engineers work. But you hardly hear about them, and that's how it is. There's certain tech roles that are making so much money, but people don't even know about them. Okay. So I was talking about the data engineer, data analyst, data scientist. Now the MLOps guys, what do? So when the data scientist, let's say, builds the AI models or the AI brains, when I say brain, it's more understandable. These MLOps guys will now take those models and they can integrate it into the application that a software engineer has built. Okay, they can work closely with the software engineers to make sure that the AI models can work inside the application that you have built, like a chatbot, right? They make sure that it works perfectly in your whole application. So that's what MLOps guys are more interested in, bringing your model or your AI brain to life or to end users so that end user can interact with the model and enjoy it, right? Cloud DevOps guys, I've already spoken about these ones. They provide the infrastructure. That's what the cloud engineers does. DevOps guys, whenever you build your model inside your app, they'll make sure that the whole app gets to end users, DevOps. Okay. So data scientists, so data engineer gets the data from different sources, makes available. Data analyst goes to that data, looks at historical data, try to build dashboards, tell stories around them to make it so that the company can make informed decisions, right? This historical, what has happened in the past. Now, data scientists, they can also do almost all the work data analysts do, but they are usually employed to focus more of what on building predictive models that will tell what will happen in the future. MLOps, when the data scientists have created a model that works perfectly, then they can now take the model to what production. Then in doing so, these guys may even be skilled themselves in the cloud and DevOps practices themselves. So some of these roles are overlapping. But when you hear of a senior data scientist, usually a senior data scientist can do data engineering, at least can do data analysis, can be even be able to do MLOps, right? And also knows DevOps and cloud. So usually senior roles can have all of these skills. And a senior person is like someone who has been in the space for about 5+ years, because as you are working, you'll be forced to learn some of these things so that you feel like you are more independent. You don't finish your model and then you are begging people to come and take the production for you. You learn how to do it yourself so that you can pay you double, right? Awesome. Great. So going back to my advice, don't try to be all of them. As I said, learn one and master it. At least get your first job. Once you're on the job, you can now be learning maybe MLOps in addition to what you know, cloud in addition to what you know, so that you can do more and get a pay raise, right? Maybe if from the beginning you're learning all of these things, some of you will even go and add cybersecurity. And what else will you add in the chat? Some of you are learning about, see, we were trained like that, and that's the problem. As if you are from Ghana, you understand what I'm saying. When we were back in basic school, we were doing like 12 courses. So we have that statement when we are looking for a job. We want to learn about 5, 10 professions at the same time. You are learning project management, you are learning DevOps, you are learning AI engineering, you are learning cybersecurity. Guy, you will not be able to go far. It will slow you down. Take one, master it, and then move on. Later on, when you get your first job, then you can be adding them. Okay. Let me just wrap up. I want the session to be quite short. You can have enough time to ask questions. 5 minutes, I'll be done. Okay, good. So the cloud builds the platform, the infrastructure, right? DevOps guys, if you want to use an infrastructure like a software engineer, you go to your app, we will bring it to that infrastructure, right? But we want to use a lot of automation to get it to the end user. Right from the developer to the end user, who can automate the whole process. And that's why we have something we call CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. We build those pipelines so that once the developer pushes something to a place we call GitHub, it continues and continues and continues till it gets to the web. And then you open your mobile app or you open the website and you can experience the new changes without anybody touching anything, any button. That's automation. So when you think of DevOps, think more of automation and automation culture. Data engineers have told what they do already. Then in the AI space, you have machine learning people, deep learning, people building these large language models, which are trained on like lots and lots of data, right? Very powerful AI brings. Okay. So at the end of the day, when you are using, let's say, a chatbot or ChatGPT or any AI app, you should know that all of these layers are sitting at the bottom, right? Cloud people are working, DevOps people are working, software engineers are working, data engineers are working, etc., etc. Okay. So tell me, where would you want to find yourself right now? Let me see the chat. Where would you want to find yourself, or where do you find yourself right now in the stack I've just shown? Where do you find yourself? I'm looking at the chat. I don't see anything in the chat. Or am I looking at the wrong place? Which one attracts you? Do you want to become a DevOps guy? Do you want to become a cloud person, cloud engineer? Don't tell me all of them all. I'll give you my advice. If you are confused, don't be confused. Okay, machine learning. Good. All right. out. Yes, computing. Good. Nice. Okay. AI is very AI is very so which part of the side of it or the data side of it or the machine side of it or you even cybersecurity. Good. So the cyber guys, one interesting thing is that see I've done a lot of cybersecurity. I'm even doing my master's in cybersecurity, right? It's doing GRC governance. They don't really do any engineering. They can compliant like security wise. Okay, you can look at the security posture of your company and know whether they are doing something wrong or something's right, whether you have to change certain things you are doing, become more safer and secured, right? They just look at risk and compliance, governance, risk and compliance. If you want to become a security engineer, it's sometimes helpful to also know some coding to understand how the web works. Even cloud, you need to even learn the cloud. So if you ask me personally, I'm not saying this is just my personal opinion. If anybody wants to really become a serious senior engineer, that is cyber engineer, I'll rather tell the person to start from something like maybe back-end engineering, maybe back-end engineering, yeah, or software engineering. Then maybe after that, becoming easier, right? But if you software engineering background and want to become, it becomes somewhat very challenging. You'll be forced to go and learn your scripting, programming language, you must learn before. So that is my honest opinion. You must, right, you must focus on to get as I said, I don't think people actually learn these skills or these professions for fun. Maybe you're just a hobbyist, you just like it and fine. But if you're really looking for a job, right, then you have to actually focus on what really matters now, not what is trending on LinkedIn. Because trends will come and go, but the foundations are always what permanent. So I would advise that if you're a young person and you now want to bring in a tech space, focus on one of these and focus very hard on them. Build real skills in these fields, right? I started my journey with Azure, Microsoft Azure, but
Hello. So please, the instructor is facing some technical issues, but he will join us soon. So let's all stay on the call for a while.
All right, sorry for that. Can you hear me now? Out that those of you who are interested in learning about cloud can actually learn it for free at no cost. Awesome. Try my screen again. Okay, let me know if the link works. I've dropped it in the chat. Great, great, great. So that's something I'm giving to you guys for free, right? And it takes you at least from beginner to somewhere in between beginner. There are recordings, you can watch them, self-paced materials, you can take advantage of them. I'll break them into 4 weeks. You can look at it. Okay. Then before you even start anything, there's a pre-bootcamp checklist. You have to create your AWS account. The steps are here, the animated steps for you. You create a GitHub setup account. Then you install Python on your laptop. All these steps are here. So if you are even an absolute beginner, do this and then guide you do all of that. Yeah, right? Even the labs that are here, lab 1 to lab 8, we've told some of them or most of them, and you find them in the section. You find that so in the bootcamp, you learn about AWS Cloud, you learn about some CI/CD stuff. Now, let's get more real now. Now, if you want to really break into any of these spaces, like data engineering, data science, machine learning, MLOps, cloud, and DevOps, there's one thing that all of these guys have in common. And I maybe say 2 things that I've found to be very foundational. Number one, make sure you take your bash scripting very serious. Let me just put it in another way, right? They call it as Linux or Linux. And how to write bash scripts. You must be good at it, right? Kind of flows. And these are things that people may not tell you, but it's quite helpful. If you want to become a serious data engineer, a serious cloud engineer, serious data analyst, serious data scientist, MLOps, you have to know shell scripting. You have to understand how to run Linux commands, because most of the servers that work on the cloud servers or infrastructure, they run, they don't run Windows operating system, right? So foundational is to know shell scripting. Then second to that is Python. Python programming language. You have to learn Python, you have to master Python, and you'll be good as a data engineer, as a data analyst, data scientist, MLOps. It is that versatile, right? Even in cloud and DevOps, Python still reigns. No matter how you look at it, Python is everywhere. So building strong foundations in Linux, just so you can be able to work on servers, like cloud servers and infrastructure that have all their OS to be Linux, right? Shell scripting is very beneficial. Then second to that, Python scripting is also very, very important. Mastering is there's one language that we all have in common, that is Python. I know Plus is good, Java is good, .NET, they are all brilliant, excellent. But if it's this place you're thinking about, then please, I would encourage you to prioritize Python. Yeah. Awesome. Great. We have some few more minutes to go. So with regards to this, we also built a free Python, let's say free Python bootcamp. We built a bootcamp, right?
So we'll end the session here for today, but that's what next time. network. So
Yeah, sorry, my network is
that.
not stable now. Yeah, but if there are any questions, I think they can drop the questions now. If there are any questions, I can answer them. So we can end here for today, but if there are questions, you can drop them in the chat and I'll answer them. Okay, if there are no, I think I'll hand over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shadrack. So we'll have a second edition of this same session in August. As well.
Okay, has
Sending the
the
website.
host ended the session? Okay, has the session ended? Okay.
So you can go to our website and you'll find more information about us, and you'll also find all the links to our various social media platforms. So thank you all for joining in. We'll meet next. Bye. Yes, please.
Okay, so I've dropped the link to the slides in the chat, okay? Those who want, I give for the slides I used. The link is in the chat. Yeah. Also added a complementary link to how Python connects to all the other data roles I mentioned. So just copy these links, put them somewhere. Hopefully when we meet a second time, we'll talk about them. I also share the links to the boot camps again with the administrator, and they'll give it to you on the platform, right? I think I've already shared the cloud one. And they'll share the Python one also with you. Take care. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.